In this example, let's look at how we might create this instrument panel in Autodesk Fusion 360. And so I've already started the panel, and I'll show you how I went about getting to this far. And so I'm going to drag my timeline back to the beginning, and I will turn on the origin planes, and then I'm going to insert a canvas, and I will select an image of the instrument panel and select a plane to put it on. Then I'm going to go ahead and accept this. I need to turn on that visibility of the canvas, so I'll click here to turn on the visibility of the canvas, and I see that it's actually rotated 90 degrees from what I would like for it to. So I'll go back and I'm going to edit this canvas, and I'm going to select this ball, and I'm going to drag this around, and I'll so that it's 90 degrees. And I also need to calibrate this canvas, so I'll right click and I'll do calibrate, and I know that from here over to here is 800, so I'm going to click on this point right here. And now when I'm calibrating this, it's just close enough. I'm not worried about getting it perfect, set in stone. And so I know that that distance, instead of 17 millimeters, I know that should be 800 millimeters. And so that gets my canvas to the correct size, or the image. And then I want to put this point right here at the origin. So I'm going to edit this canvas again, and I'm going to drag this rectangle up, and I need to put the red cross right at the origin. So I put this red cross, and I missed it a little bit right there at the end, so let me drag this over. And again, I'm not using this as absolute. I'll use the dimensions as my absolute position. I'll say OK to that. And so then I'm going to turn off the visibility of the origin, and I went over and I sketched this profile, and I'll edit that sketch. And I see that the dimensions that come off of the drawing, so if I look on the drawing over here, and I might have some trouble panning this. Let me make my image a little bit smaller here so I can get to the pan tools. And so I see that here's my cross. It's 106 over to here, it's 9 up to here, and so forth. So I'll use these dimensions as I go along. So I have the 9 dimension, the 106, and so forth. Notice this sketch is black. It's all fully constrained. So the first thing I did is I created a rectangle, and I did a midpoint constraint from the horizontal line to the origin, and dimension from there. I'm going to undo all that because I've already done that step. And then if I finish that sketch, and I don't want to put too much into one sketch, so I go to the next sketch and I put some of the geometry in here. If I edit that sketch, we see the dimensions, so we have to be in edit sketch to see all of those dimensions. And I might toggle the canvas on and off so that I don't have the screen too cluttered up as I'm modeling, and try to put my dimensions where it's easy to edit those. And I'll finish this sketch, and I'll go to the next sketch. Again, we don't see the dimensions unless we edit sketch, and then we can get to our dimensions and edit them. And same thing with that and the next sketch. So let's look at how to put in some of this geometry. So I'm going to do these holes over here on this side. So if I go to the origin and I find that plane, and I see that it's the XZ plane, I'll right click and I'll tell it to create a new sketch on that XZ plane. And then I'm going to put in this line right here at 70. And so I'm going to draw a line, and I'm going to do this as a construction line. And so I'll do this line over about like that, and I'll go ahead and dimension from the origin up to this line. That distance is 70, and then from the origin over to the center of this hole is 347. So I'll dimension from here, and I don't like the way that Fusion put this dimension line over top of my construction line, but I'll move that over here, and then I'm going to dimension from this point over to this point, and that distance is 347. Okay, notice that point turns black. It's fully defined. This point is still white. It's not fully defined. So that's going to be this 326 dimension. Let's make this a little bit bigger here. So, actually it'll be 266. So I'll dimension from this point over to the origin, that 266. And we'll zoom in on that a little bit more. And then I'm going to put a line vertically, and I'll go from this point up, and this will be at 320. And so I'll draw a line from here, and I will dimension that line. And so we'll do dimension from this point over to the origin, from the origin over to this line, and I want that horizontal distance, and so that distance is 320. Let me arrange these dimensions a little bit better. So I'm going to drag this one down here, and again, I don't like how it put it over top of that line. So rather than select a line, I'm going to make sure that I get this point. I'll get that point right there, and here over to there, and I'll put in that 320. And then I need that vertical height, and that is 102. So I'll dimension from here to here as 102, and then I will put in this line down here, and so I'm going to put in a line down here, and this line will be straight down from that line, this point right here. And so I'm going to drag this over here. Actually, I'll drag it over to about there, and then I'm going to extend this line down to that location, and then I'll either do coincident up here or just drag this point over and drop it on that point. So I get that location right there, and I need to find the height of that. Now, it's a little bit difficult for me to be working back and forth on here. I usually use two monitors, and so I can see on my second monitor without having to zoom in and out like this. It makes it a little bit easier. And so that's 44 for the height of that, and actually that was the same as one of the previous heights. So what I could do is project geometry this into my current sketch, and then just make those two collinear. Let's see how to do that. So I'll do P for project geometry, and I'll project this line, and so now that line is projected into this sketch, and I'm going to do collinear. I'll make this line collinear to that projected line, and watch, this line's going to move. Okay, so now it turns black, and then I need to put the dimension in from here over. I think I might have had that earlier, but I erased it or deleted it when I did that extend. And that's the 320. All right, and then I have dimension from the origin over 293, and so I'll draw a line from here up to here, and I'll dimension that distance from here over to the origin, 293. And I need this dimension 266, and I've got that right here, and then that comes down, and let's just drag this point over, and I could either put a line in there or just put a vertical constraint in there. I'll go ahead and put a line in here. I don't really need this, but it'll help me visualize what we have. Now if I notice that that line, it didn't change black, so it's not fully defined, and I drag it and I see that it isn't staying horizontal or vertical, so I'll do vertical constraint, and now it stays black. I'll draw some circles here, so I'll draw this circle, and I want it not construction, so I'm going to come over, uncheck construction, and I'll draw a circle there. I'll draw a circle up here. I'll draw a circle here. Be careful, there's a midpoint right there. I don't want it at midpoint, I wanted it at intersection. And I want a circle here and a circle here. And so I've got those 4 circles. I'll put a circle here and a circle here and a circle here. I want all of these circles to be the same size, so I'll hold down my control key and I'm going to select all of these circles. Now there's a lot of different ways we could have done this. We could have done a pattern. We could have put whole features in here rather than the circles. I'll select equal. Those are now all the same size. I'm not sure what the size should be, so I'm going to turn on my canvas. And so here's my canvas image. The dimension for these holes are not given on the canvas that I have, so I'm just going to guess those dimensions. And again, I'm using the canvas only as reference, not as absolute. And I'm going to guess that those holes are 12. Notice that they all turn black. They are all fully defined. And I'll finish my sketch. And you can continue on putting this hole and the rectangular holes and so forth. Now let's look at how to create the geometry. So I'm going to drag my timeline back to this first sketch. Now I'm going to do extrude, and I'm going to tell it to go down, and I don't know how thick this was supposed to be. Let's say 2 millimeters. So I made that 2 millimeters thick. I'll drag my timeline to the next sketch, and I'm going to do extrude. I'm going to select this circle, this circle. Now I have to be careful on this one. It probably would have been a good idea to put this on a separate sketch. I'll select this area and this area and this area and this area, and I'm going to go cut. So I'll drag that down. I want to cut, and I'll just tell that distance to go through all the way through, and I'll say OK to that, and I have those holes. But I really wanted the mounting screw holes on there too, the fastener holes. So let's go back to that sketch, and I'll click here to make that sketch visible, and I could either add it to this extrusion or I could do a new extrusion. We'll do it both ways. So I'm going to do extrude. I'm going to do a second extrusion. I'm going to select all of these smaller holes, and again, it might have made sense to do this as a pattern rather than, and I would do it as a feature pattern rather than a sketch pattern. But we'll continue the way we're working. I'll select those smaller circles, and so I've got the last one I want to cut, so I'll drag that through, and I'll tell it for the distance to go through all. I'll say OK. So I did that as 2 separate extrusion features using that same sketch. I'll hide that sketch, and I'm going to go to the next sketch. And this one I'll do it in one feature but edit the feature. So I'll do extrude, and I'm going to select these rectangles, and I'll get this hole and this hole, and I'll tell it I want to do cut, and I'll tell it the distance to go through all, but really I wanted the fastener holes on there too. Now on the previous one I did it as 2 features. We'll see how we can edit this feature. So first I need to make that sketch visible again, and then I'll right click and I'll edit this feature, and I'll notice it has 5 items selected. I'll select this, so now it has 6 selected. I selected that hole, I selected that hole, and I selected this one, and I did this one. So that's editing the feature. And so now I have those holes. I'll hide that sketch. I will drag down to the next sketch, and I'll do extrude, and I'll select all of these holes, the circles, and I want to go through all, so I'll tell it to go through all, and then I will go to the next set of holes, and I'll do my extrude. So we'll go through and get all these holes. One thing I try to do is to keep my sketches, individual sketches, relatively simple. I have a general rule of around 7. I have a few more than 7 entities in this one, but you know, 7 to maybe 15 entities and no more. Keep the sketch simple, and so I want that to go through all, and I will drag my timeline over, and I have another set of holes over here. So it's just a matter of you know, the saying, how do you eat an elephant? 1 bite at a time. So you take a little bites at a time, and step by step you get to the end of the part. And so if I turn on the visibility of my canvas now, so I see that I've got this geometry. I need to put this hole in here, this rectangle with the mounting holes. There's a rectangle over here. So just a little bit more work, and this part would be completed. I almost forgot that I wanted to show how to add these fillets in here. And so if that distance is 9, then this would be 4.5 and 4.5. And so let's expand this, and then I'll go in here and look at this. Now I generally add fillets as features rather than as a sketch, so I could put those fillets in the sketch, but I prefer to do it here. And so I'll do fillet, and I'm going to select this edge and this edge, and I'll get this edge, and I'll get that edge, and I'll change that to 4.5. And so I have those fillets in those edges, and I might want to put an appearance on this. So I'm going to right click on that body, and I'll go to the appearance, and I'm going to go to the metal category. So I went into, or steel, I went into the steel category, and I'm going to do this steel brushed radial, and I need to download that, or I may need to download it. Let's see if we can get this, and then I'm going to apply that to this face, and that might be a little bit big for this face. So I'm going to right click, and I'll say edit that, and I'll go to the advanced tab, and I'm going to find the I'm looking for the size of this, and I might need to create a duplicate of this, because I'm not seeing what I'm expecting to see here. And so let's just create a duplicate of this. So I'll right click, and I'll duplicate this one, and then I'll edit the duplicate, and oh, here, it was probably in the previous one. I just skipped over it. So here's the scale. I can drag this scale, and now I have the original on here, so I need to replace the original, and so that's maybe too small. So I'll go back and edit this again. So I'll edit that and increase that scale some, and I can see it now as I drag this and get the texture that I want on this panel to make it look aesthetically pleasing. So I'll create a few more holes, make adjustments to the texture as desired, and that will complete your part.